As deer habitat managers, one of the easiest and most exciting projects we can do to build up the habitat on our hunting properties is convert old field environments into beneficial deer habitat. Let me show you what I'm doing on this particular part of our property to build up the habitat for deer and other wildlife. So this part of the farm was once dominated by cool season grasses. There was not much for broadleaf herbaceous plants. There was not much for woody regeneration. It was just rank cool season grass. And you can see the absolute flush of good native species that we have popping out here in this old field environment. I mean, when you look at some of these herbaceous plants like this aster, you can see that the deer are responding as they're browsing most of it. So before we had junk, non-native grass, and now we have a flush of really good beneficial plants. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you've seen me shoot videos on this area in the past. I want to keep shooting videos on it to show the progression of habitat over time. Now, I still have a fair amount of herbaceous growth, but there are parts of this that have really started to bring on the woody regeneration. And a big reason that I'm able to get a flush of good growth here is because I have killed, if you look underneath here, the majority of the grasses that are in here. So what I did is I came in here in this entire area, I sprayed with clethodim and crop oil when those grasses were 1 to 4 inches tall, right at spring green up. Now, the primary grass that I was killing was smooth brome, which is non-native. It's garbage, dominates native habitat, so I got rid of it so that I could start to see this. Now, you see there is still some grasses underneath, but most of these, you go right down to it, I think they're just sitting stagnant because they got hit hard with that clethodim. I'm going to stay at it with my clethodim application here because there's a ton of that brome seed in the seed bed, so every year I get a little bit coming back, but the more I can keep it knocked back, the more I'm going to get what I want. I mean, you can see a ton of goldenrod out here. I have some oaks out here that I need to get those bad boys caged so the deer don't keep browsing them back. I got ash coming back. I've sprinkled in some pine trees and some spruce. So all kinds of good diversity out in this area. I mean, you can see why I need to cage these oaks. We planted them 20 years ago and they're 2.5 feet tall. I mean, before I killed all this grass, look at the browse on them. They were kind of the only show in town as far as food because grass is not deer food. It's not deer habitat. So the deer would browse these and hammer them, but I'm starting to get a few that are going past the deer. But biggest thing out here, I don't need to plant oaks. I need to just protect and cage the ones that I already have, because I got plenty of them that have a good root system. Like I said, they've been sitting here for 20 years. They just get browsed hard every single winter and in the summer too. So if I throw a cage on those, I'll actually start to have a viable tree. Just one of those many projects I need to get around to. Well, another great time to go after the cool season grasses in your old field areas is the fall, right after the first killing frost. You can hit them hard with your clethodim then and be able to knock them out pretty good. So there's a couple good windows for the cleth. I would not be spraying it right now in the middle of summer. It's just not going to do much. It'll probably top kill the plant, these grasses, but I don't think I wouldn't get a good kill as far as full termination of those grasses. So out in these areas, like I said, I do have some scattered spruce. You can see we're putting on crazy awesome growth here. All that. And it's early July here in Minnesota, but we've been so wet that they are trees are doing really well. I want scattered spruce and conifers out here for bedding structure as the woody stuff starts to pop out here. So those spruce and those red pine shouldn't get browsed by the deer. So if I can get those out here and keep this woody regeneration coming, even though you can see, yowza, they just hammer, especially ash. They love ash trees. But if I can get some of this to be viable structure and get some of these conifers to be viable structure, well, then I'll be cooking with gas out here as far as habitat that holds deer. So here's a pocket of the old field conversion. You can see that's dominated by woody species. Beautiful spruce right there. But the ash trees have really taken over out here, and there's some scattered box elder as well. I mean, but this is the eventual goal. Viable cover that will actually hold deer. All that herbaceous stuff will go flat. It is great brood rearing cover, great fawning cover. But this is what we are lacking the most, is cover that will help the deer during the fall and winter months, or that will actually hold the deer during the fall and winter months. The first frost, all that herbaceous stuff is going to drop flat. So I love it. It's better than grass. But this is the ultimate goal right here. So that's why I'm staying after the grass, so I can keep getting this volunteer early successional growth out of my woody species. There's that box elder. And as I've shared in the past, this is what kind of the end goal is right here. This was an area that sat fallow for 20 plus years, and you can see the box elders have taken off. We got scattered spruce, and then there's a lot of that. Tons of deer beds in here. I just bumped in 5 feet. There's 4 acres of this, but this spot holds, or has really started to hold, a lot of deer in the last 3 or 4 years. So ultimately, converting the other open ground that's adjacent to here into this would be what we're shooting for. As a part of this old field conversion, I do have pockets of switchgrass mixed in too, just for some diversity and quicker bedding structure. You can see there's my switchgrass right out there. Looks great. This is terrible soil right here. So I mean, I don't expect much more than 5 feet of growth, but who knows? It's been a good wet year, so maybe this stuff will push to that 6-7 feet. But I mean, switchgrass really, the height really does depend on the type of soil you're planting in. I mean, it does a great job. I got stuff planted in straight gravel, and the switchgrass will grow, but it only grows to about 3-4 feet tall when it's planted in gravel. Now this is kind of gravelly, lighter soil right here, and this stuff is, well, it's already pushing 5 feet and nowhere close to pushing out the seed heads. So should get 6-7 feet out of it this year. But I have a nice pocket of switch right here, button up to a bunch of shrubby cover. You can see down in there. So those are those transitional spots that I expect the deer to bed in. I don't expect them to bed right in the middle of this switch, but I do think they're going to bed along those edges. And there are pockets in the middle of the switch that they may bed too, where it's a little bit open. But if it's too thick, like right here, it's pretty thick, I don't see much deer bedding in that. But where get those open pockets, that's definitely where the deer like to bed. And this will be 3rd year RC Tecumseh right here. So it'll be exciting to see what it does down in the bottom where the good soil is. I think I can get 7 to 8 feet out of it this year, because even year 2 in a dry year, it did about 7 feet. So we'll see what it does this year, but all of it's looking great right now. Here's that switchgrass that's pretty much planted in straight gravel. Still, I mean, I'd say 3 feet tall. So if it gets 4 or 5 feet tall in a spot that was straight gravel, I'll take it, because nothing grew here. It was literally bare dirt when I seeded. Didn't even have to spare anything because it's basically a gravelly hillside. So the fact that the switch grew is pretty impressive. I do have some of my own plantings out here, like I mentioned earlier with the conifers. I did plant this too. I have some streamco willows in this lower area. I like streamcoes because they get big and bushy. It was more for bedding structure. They're probably a better screening tree than bedding structure tree, but my best bedding structure trees are just tough to get past the deer. I need to cage and tube those, and the deer did browse these as well, so I had to protect that one for a while. But you can see we're at that point. It's finally starting to bush out. It's about 6-7 feet tall, so eventually this thing will really fill out. I think they're like 20 feet by 20 feet at full maturity. So I have a handful of these kind of scattered. Maybe you can see some in the background scattered throughout here. There's additional bedding structure. Here you can see some more of that good edge switchgrass all the way along here. That was filled with buckthorn last year. Cut out the buckthorn, sprayed the small stuff, treated the stumps. Now it's loaded with good native shrubs. Breathed new life into those. I'm sure that big oak right there died because the buckthorn was so thick and rank underneath it. But I got the switchgrass screening strip here. Got some conifers to break up the spot where the shrubs are. And that in there makes for some great bedding cover for deer. There's always deer in there, and they hold tight in there because when we're leaving morning stand, we do have to, this is kind of, that's near the property line there. We got to kick out that way, and those deer will hold tight right in there, especially as we've added the screening. So, yep, just continually building up that habitat. And this switchgrass I do expect to be, this is really nice green stuff. I expect this to be in that 7-8 foot tall range, so it makes a great screen as we're leaving morning bow stand for any potential deer that they tend to bed actually up that direction. So lots of edge. We want all kinds of edge when it comes to creating this habitat because that's where the deer tend to hang out. Here you can see another big switchgrass pocket with lots of woody regeneration in it. That's the goal. I want the diversity. The more woody stuff I see in the switchgrass, the more bedding I get. So I welcome that woody regeneration. Lots of diverse species in here. There's literally oak. There are balsam poplar. There's Bebb's willow. There's peach leaf willow. All kinds of good stuff. And this switchgrass is going on 6 years, so that's why the woody stuff is starting to encroach in here. But I'm good with that. I'm building up the habitat, and I want diversity. Started out as pretty much pure switch, and now it's kind of converting over, and that's fine by me because the deer love this habitat. There you can see a beautiful red oak right there. But all kinds of activity out in this area now. That's the goal. So ultimately I want as many different habitat types out in this old field environment as possible. I want the herbaceous growth. I want some switchgrass. I want shrubs. I want hardwoods. I want softwoods. As much diversity as I can give them, the better. I mean, I want conifers for thermal cover. Diversity wins the day when it comes to deer habitat management, and that was my goal. And it all started with just killing the cool season grass and releasing that seedbed. I mean, if you just do that, you will create good deer habitat. And then as you start adding in maybe some of your own tree plantings, some switchgrass, things like that, it'll get even better. But it doesn't take much. It's easy to convert many acres by just spraying and killing the cool season grass. So I'll keep doing updates on this area every year because I just geek out on this spot on the farm, and I love to show how it keeps transforming year after year. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Y'all take care. God bless.